Welcome to a fun history of America, Simplified, the epic, entertaining, and energizing journey through hundreds of years of U.S. history, made so simple even your pet eagle could understand. Whether you love history or find it sleep-inducing, this story will change how you see America's past. No boring lectures, no complicated textbooks, just a straight, story-driven ride from the very beginning to today. Let's go. Please kindly subscribe to this channel to follow for more. Long before the United States was a thing, before New York's skyscrapers, California's Hollywood dreams, and Washington, D.C.'s politics, this land was home to the Native Americans. They weren't just wandering around. They had vast cultures, governments, religions, and trade systems. The Cherokee, Navajo, Iroquois, Sioux, and many others had been here for thousands of years, hunting, farming, building cities like Cahokia, and living in harmony with nature, long before Europe even heard of this continent. Then, in 1492, Christopher Columbus accidentally stumbled upon the Americas while trying to find a shortcut to India. He didn't find spices, but he did open the floodgates for European exploration. Spain, France, and England raced to grab land, riches, and power. Colonies began to appear like mushrooms after rain. And while all this was happening, the indigenous people were pushed aside, attacked, enslaved, and killed. It was the beginning of a tragic and long-lasting impact on Native American lives. In 1607, the English planted their first permanent colony in Jamestown, Virginia. It wasn't smooth sailing. Disease, starvation, and conflicts with Native Americans nearly wiped them out. But thanks to some resilience, trade, and help from people like Pocahontas, Jamestown survived. More colonies followed: Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, and soon there were 13 colonies stretching along the East Coast. At first, things were all right. The colonies were loyal to Britain, paid taxes, and enjoyed British protection. But then, the British started acting like a greedy landlord, taxing things like sugar, paper, and tea, all without asking the colonists. This made the colonists fume. Enter: no taxation without representation. The people protested. They boycotted British goods. And one night, in 1773, they dumped an entire shipment of tea into the Boston Harbor. That's right, the famous Boston Tea Party. Britain got mad. Colonists got bolder. In 1775, the first shots of the American Revolutionary War were fired, led by George Washington, a brave general who would later become the first president. The ragtag Continental Army fought against the mighty British Empire. It wasn't easy. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and underfed. But with courage, French support, and determination, they pulled off the unthinkable. In 1783, the war ended. The United States was officially born. Cue the bald eagles and fireworks. In 1787, the Founding Fathers created the U.S. Constitution, laying out the blueprint for government. 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial, with checks and balances to prevent anyone from becoming a king. And just a few years later, they added the Bill of Rights, 10 amendments guaranteeing freedom of speech, religion, press, and more. But this new nation wasn't without flaws. Slavery was still alive and brutal in the South. Native Americans were still being displaced. Women couldn't vote. Yet the country moved forward, growing fast. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the country's size overnight. Explorers Lewis and Clark set out to map it, encountering rivers, mountains, and native tribes. Soon, Americans believed they had a destiny, manifest destiny, to stretch coast to coast. They moved west, settling lands, building railroads, striking gold in California, and founding new states. But westward expansion meant wars. With Mexico, with native tribes, and with nature itself. The Mexican-American War in the 1840s ended with America grabbing what's now Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, and more. The U.S. was growing, fast and furiously. But under the surface, America was boiling. The big question: should slavery continue? The North said no. The South said yes. The debate divided the country. Then, in 1860, a tall, honest man named Abraham Lincoln became president. The Southern states freaked out and began to secede, meaning they left the Union. In 1861, the Civil War began. The war was brutal. It tore families apart. Over 600,000 people died. Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, freeing enslaved people in rebel states. Finally, in 1865, the Union won. The Southern Confederacy collapsed, and slavery was outlawed. Tragically, Lincoln was assassinated just days later, becoming a martyr for unity and freedom. The post-war period was called Reconstruction, a time of rebuilding and reintegration. Former slaves were declared citizens and given voting rights. But progress was short-lived. White supremacist groups like the KKK rose up. Jim Crow laws enforced segregation and inequality for nearly 100 years. Meanwhile, the North industrialized. Factories, steel, railroads, and immigration fueled a new era. Millions of people from Europe came seeking a better life. They settled in cities, worked in dangerous jobs, and created America's great melting pot. Inventions like the telephone, light bulb, and automobile transformed daily life. By 1917, America entered World War I, joining the Allied forces. When the war ended, America felt powerful. The 1920s were wild, the Roaring Twenties, jazz, flappers, prohibition, and the birth of Hollywood. But then came the Great Depression in 1929. The stock market crashed. Banks failed. People lost jobs, homes, and hope. Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR, came in with a New Deal. Government programs to revive